Before we dive into these disturbing confessions that will keep you up tonight, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming. And if you make it to the end of this video, you'll understand why these stories have haunted thousands of people online. Now, let's begin with something that sounds like it came straight from a nightmare. I cheated on my wife of 10 years. I left her and our 2 children for someone I met online in an MMO. If I'm being completely honest here, that first sentence is a perfect summary of my confession. But the actual story runs much deeper than that. Pause. I did a tour in the US Army. While in service, I busted 2 vertebrae and suffered serious nerve damage. The kind of damage that changes everything. I was discharged. Not the way I wanted my military career to end, but that's what happened. Fast forward 2 years. 2 years of drinking myself into oblivion and drowning in depression post-tour. I was out of money, no job, and generally doing absolutely nothing with my life. That's when I met a group of what I can only describe as seriously cool, modern hippies, Wiccans, alternative lifestylers, people who lived outside the boxes society tries to put us in. I made friends with a bunch of them. There was this one woman there who absolutely hated my guts. She couldn't stand me, said I was too polite, too nice, always had some nasty comment ready for me. But here's the thing about hate and love. Sometimes they're closer than we think. A few months passed. I hooked up casually with some of the women in this group. Started feeling like I was fitting in somewhere for the first time in a long time. Still seriously depressed though. Still drinking. But gradually pulling myself out of the nosedive my life had become. I got a job. Got a place. And by all accounts, I was doing pretty well. I even started being friends with that mean woman. Come to find out, she was actually rather cool. Older than me by a bit. Previously married, but cool. She had a great kid. I even liked him. That's when we started sleeping together. Not because I really felt anything deep. Just physical connection. Just bodies. You know how it goes. Couple months pass and the place I'm working at closes. Again, no job, no money, nowhere to go. This woman asked me to move in. I did. I figured since we were already intimate, I could sleep over, right? Not really a bad deal when you're broke and directionless. I had some money from disability benefits from the Army. I helped her pay off her place with a VA loan. She was really grateful for that. A month or so later, I came in from hanging with some guys one night. Found her crying on the couch. I couldn't figure out why on my own. So after a long conversation, she confessed that she was in love with me. I had no idea what to say in that moment. So I just said I loved her too, even though I wasn't sure what love even meant anymore. Pause. Fast forward 3 years. Things had been financially stressful, on and off jobs, small little town with limited opportunities, tons of stress, tons of fighting. My now wife was starting to get seriously nasty, saying some really cruel things to me on the daily, things that cut deep. I don't like arguing. It's never been my style, but it was getting to the point where I felt like she was actually goading me into hitting her, testing me, pushing boundaries to see if I'd snap. I finally had enough. I made plans to leave her. That's when I found out she was pregnant. My heart sank in that moment, like a stone dropping into dark water. All I could do was bite the bullet, do what I thought was the right thing, stay with her. Things did get better for a while. We bought a house. I opened a business. We had a beautiful baby boy. I even took some classes at the local college. I came to love her son from her previous relationship as my own flesh and blood. I was actually doing pretty well emotionally at this point, stressed a bit, but functioning. Things seemed stable. Then my business folded, just collapsed under the weight of an economy that didn't care about small enterprises. We had to sell the house just to stay afloat. Moved into a small rental, and once again, the fights started up like clockwork. Only this time, they were worse, much worse. She was saying things that made my blood run cold. Horrible statements that I won't repeat here. At this point, I had 2 beautiful boys to think about. I wasn't just making decisions for myself anymore. The fighting escalated to the point where I just shut down emotionally, stopped engaging altogether. I'd come home from whatever job I could find, eat dinner in silence, and retreat into my own head. Depression was settling back in like an old familiar enemy. Then I discovered an MMO. A friend told me about it, said it might help me decompress. So I tried it out, got into the roleplay scene and started having some serious fun. Other than my kids, this became pretty much the only thing I had going on that brought me any joy. If you're still watching, hit that like button. These stories only get more intense from here. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. While in game, I got into some serious role-playing storylines with another player. We started talking out of character, getting to know each other very well. She was married, having similar marriage issues as me. We had a lot of common interests, really seemed to connect on a level I hadn't experienced in years. We ended up talking for 3 to 4 hours at a time, even longer on weekends. I started having feelings for this person, and at this point, I seriously didn't know how to deal with it. Like those fluttery, bouncy feelings you get when you're a teenager. Butterflies that I thought had died long ago. I have no idea what to do with these emotions. Hell, until much later, I thought I was having small heart attacks or something. That's how foreign positive feelings had become to me. Emotionally, I skyrocketed out of my depression. I started listening to music again, wanted to dance, generally became more upbeat about life, started wanting to go out more, hit the bars, play pool, do things normal people do. My wife noticed, and we got into a huge fight about it. She said my happiness weirded her out, that it made her skin crawl. Can you imagine that? Being told that your happiness disturbs someone, that seeing you smile makes them uncomfortable. That was my reality. This led to 2 weeks of constant hell. Every single day, it was the same familiar fight, the same accusations, the same poison. Well, a week or so later, the person I met online asked me to meet her in real life. I was at my breaking point. I couldn't stand what was going on in my house anymore. I felt like I was going to rip someone's head off if something didn't change. So yeah, I could use a vacation, a break from my life. Note here, I had no idea what feelings I actually had for this woman. I'm not exactly what you would call emotionally self-aware. Years of trauma and depression had numbed me to my own internal landscape. I drove 3 hours to meet her at her family's ranch house. We had a nice little private meal, talked about everything and nothing, got out into nature. We walked in the woods, and I felt genuinely at peace for the first time in years. All my stressors just slid off my back like water. I was happy, genuinely, deeply happy. Night came, and we were inside still talking. We got tired, and there was a futon. We both kind of just laid down and cuddled up. And as they say, one thing led to another. Pause. The weekend was incredible. I've never felt like that with anyone before or since. Everything was absolutely perfect. I didn't even feel guilt about the cheating. Not a single ounce. That should have told me something right there about the state of my marriage. Time came and I had to go home. Apparently, I was out of service range for my cell during the trip. So I started getting serious text message spam on the drive back. Lots of mean, nasty messages from the wife. And at the end, I found out she'd sent my stuff over to my mother's house. She was kicking me out. All I could muster was a shrug. I realized then that I didn't care anymore. The marriage was already dead. I'd just been too afraid to admit it. The next 2 weeks were crazy. Couch surfing at my mom's place. Didn't say anything about my weekend. Didn't tell anyone what had actually happened. Wife kept calling to tear me a new one. She told me she decided to go out while I was gone. When she got back, she announced that she'd hooked up with another guy. At this point, I wasn't even sure I cared. Another huge fight followed. Are you still with me? Drop a comment below about whether you think what I did was justified or if I'm just making excuses. I want to hear your honest thoughts. We separated after that. She got the kids during the week and I got them on weekends. Standard arrangement. But here's where it gets complicated. She asks if we could try again. Work things out for the kids. I told her absolutely not. I'd met someone who actually made me feel alive. Someone who didn't treat me like garbage. She demanded to meet this woman. So we all met up at a neutral location. Turns out, my wife is actually really impressed with her. They got along surprisingly well, but she still insisted our marriage could work if we tried couples therapy and all that. The woman I'd fallen for told me she supported whatever decision I made. She didn't want to be the reason I lost my children. That level of selflessness only made me love her more. I agreed to try therapy with my wife. We went to several sessions. During one of those sessions, in front of the therapist, my wife finally admitted something I'd suspected for years. She'd never really been attracted to me. She'd married me out of convenience and desperation, not love. The therapist looked uncomfortable. I felt validated and destroyed at the same time. After that confession, even the therapist suggested we separate permanently. We did. The divorce wasn't pretty. There were custody battles, financial nightmares, all the usual hell that comes with ending a marriage. But eventually, things settled. I married the woman from the game. We've been together for years now. We have a life that feels authentic, real, built on actual feelings rather than obligation and resentment. My kids are doing okay. They've adjusted. They spend time with both parents. And honestly, I think they're better off seeing their parents in healthier relationships rather than watching us destroy each other slowly. Do I regret how it happened? The cheating part? Sometimes. I wish I'd had the courage to leave first before starting something new. But I was drowning and she threw me a lifeline. I grabbed it. I'm not proud of the way things unfolded, but I'm not sorry about where I ended up either. Sometimes life doesn't give you clean exits. Sometimes you have to make messy decisions to survive. That's my confession. I destroyed a marriage for someone I met in an online game, and I'd probably do it again. Pause. Let's shift gears now to something that hits differently. This next confession might save someone's life, so pay attention. My wife is the reason I'm still alive today. I don't think she realizes that she saved my life. And to this day, I've never explicitly told her. This was nearly a decade ago, back when she was just my girlfriend. At the time, I was going through one of the darkest stretches of my life. Everything about existence felt heavy, suffocating. Work wasn't going anywhere. I didn't feel like I had any real sense of direction. Every day seemed like a repeat of the one before, my own personal Groundhog Day, but without the humor. The people around me probably thought I was just stressed or burnt out. But inside, I felt like I was drowning in slow motion. I didn't talk about it with anyone. I bottled everything up deep inside where no one could see. I thought it was on me to handle it myself, that admitting how badly I was struggling was some kind of weakness. I know now just how dangerous that mindset is, how it nearly cost me everything, but at the time, it was all I knew. One night, I got in my car and just started driving. No destination in mind, no plan, just an urge to escape my life, escape myself. Eventually, I ended up at a bridge on the outskirts of town. Looking back on it now, I can't even say if I had a real intention of jumping. Maybe I did. Maybe I just wanted to scare myself into feeling something, anything. But maybe I just wanted to sit there staring into the void, letting the thought linger like smoke. And that's what I did. I parked my car, turned the engine off, turned the lights off, just sat there in silence with my thoughts for 30 minutes. I don't think I moved at all during that time. I stared out into the dark, thinking some of the worst thoughts I'd ever had in my entire life. Thoughts that, when I recall them now, still make me physically shudder. It felt like I was getting closer and closer to a decision, to the edge of something irreversible. And that's when my phone chimed. Pause. It was a text from my girlfriend, something simple and completely normal. Are you working overtime tonight? When should I have your dinner ready? That was it. Just a casual question about dinner. And if I'm being completely honest, those simple words absolutely shattered me in that moment. I went from sitting there like a stone statue to sobbing so hard I couldn't catch my breath. Tears I didn't know I had just poured out of me. My whole body shook with the force of it. I kept thinking one thing over and over. How could I have even considered doing something so selfish? How could I think about leaving behind the one person who actually cared about me? Her text reminded me that I mattered to someone. I mattered. She was at home thinking about me, planning dinner, waiting for me to walk through the door like any other normal night, like I was expected, wanted. And there I was, parked on the edge of something I might never come back from. Make sure you're subscribed. Stories like this matter. They need to be heard. Hit that notification bell too. I sat there for another half hour, not dwelling in those dark thoughts anymore, just trying to pull myself together enough to drive. Eventually, I made it home. When I walked in, there she was, smiling at me like nothing was wrong, like the world hadn't almost lost me an hour earlier. Dinner was on the table. I don't think I've ever had a plate of pork chops, vegetables, and rice taste so delicious. I remember hugging her like I'd never hugged anyone before in my entire life. I couldn't stop holding her, feeling her warmth, her realness. I don't think she realized why I was being so clingy that night, but that hug was my way of silently saying, "Thank you for saving me." That plate of food wasn't just supper. It was proof that someone loved me enough to want me home. Life moved on from there as it does. A few years later, I proposed to her. She said yes without hesitation. And every single day since, I've woken up beside her feeling like I won some cosmic lottery I didn't deserve. She has no idea how close she came to losing me before we even had a chance to build a future together. And like I said at the start, I've never told her about that night. She knows I was going through a rough time back then, but she doesn't know about the bridge. She doesn't know how her simple text about dinner pulled me back from an edge I was seconds away from stepping over. She thinks I was just working overtime that night. And maybe that's okay. Maybe some truths are too heavy to share. Maybe letting her believe in that small, normal lie is my way of protecting her from the weight of what almost happened. I still think about that night sometimes, especially on hard days. It serves as a reminder that we never really know what someone is going through. That a simple text message, a phone call, a small gesture of care can literally be the difference between life and death. If you're going through something dark right now, please reach out. Please tell someone. Don't make the mistake I almost made. Your life matters more than you know. Pause. Now we're moving into territory that's going to disturb you. This next story involves workplace dynamics that took a turn into absolute madness. So this happened at my old job back when I was still pretty new to the whole adulting world. Still figuring out how professional relationships work. I had two coworkers I got along with well enough, a guy and a woman. The woman was Muslim and wore a hijab. Don't get me wrong, that detail isn't usually important, but it kind of becomes relevant later, so just keep that in mind as this unfolds. We all had to go on this work trip together, far from glamorous. Just a few days out of town to help with a project in some boring small city. The first day went fine. We did our jobs, checked into the hotel. Everyone seemed in good spirits. That night, both of them invited me to go out to dinner with them, but I was honestly exhausted. I figured we'd have plenty of time to socialize over the next few days. So I turned them down, went back to my room, and crashed hard. The next morning, though, I noticed something was off. The male coworker seemed quieter than usual. Didn't really want to talk much. Kept to himself in this uncomfortable way. When it was time to drive to the site, he pretty much insisted that I ride in the front seat with him, which struck me as genuinely odd. I mean, it wasn't exactly a big deal, but his tone made it feel like he really didn't want to be up front with our other coworker, like he was avoiding her. I didn't push it, but it stuck in my mind as weird. Anyway, we got through that day fine, but later that evening, my female coworker invited us both to hang out in her hotel room and have some drinks. Nothing too crazy, just a couple of beers. Maybe watch a movie together. I figured why not? It was a work trip, and we were all stuck in the same boring town anyway. At first, it was completely normal. We sat around, drank a little bit, talked about random stuff, kids, work, funny stories from our lives. I was even starting to think that having work friends who were a little older than me was actually really cool. They saw life in a different way than I did. They had more experience, more perspective. It would be interesting to pick their brains about things. But right around then, things started to get strange. And I mean genuinely bizarre. Out of nowhere, the female coworker turned her attention to our male coworker and started hitting on him. I mean blatantly, aggressively, telling him he should take off his shirt, asking him weird personal questions, just crossing lines that felt wildly inappropriate, especially considering he's happily married. The kicker? So is she. At least that's what I thought coming into this whole situation. I watched the color drain from his face. You could tell he was deeply uncomfortable. But he tried to laugh it off at first, tried to deflect with humor. Eventually, though, it seemed like it got to be too much for him. He excused himself from the group and said he was heading to bed. Now, before anyone says I should have spoken up or left too, you have to remember this. This was my very first real job. They were both older than me by at least a decade, and I honestly thought maybe this was just some awkward grown-up flirting dynamic that I didn't understand yet. So instead of bowing out along with him, I stayed behind. And I regret that decision to this day. When it was just the two of us, she shifted gears almost entirely. Now she was showing me pictures of her kids, talking about her family, which on its own seemed normal enough. But after what she'd just pulled with our coworker, it seemed weird, disjointed, like watching someone switch personalities. I was still trying to process everything when she randomly pulls out her phone and navigates to Instagram. She pulls up some page of a male model. I wouldn't say this guy was super famous, just one of those wannabe influencer types with maybe a couple thousand followers. The guy was objectively attractive, but nothing about his page screamed celebrity or anything special. That's when she leaned in close with these wide, unblinking eyes and told me that she was having an affair with this man, that he was in love with her, and that she was divorcing her husband any day now just so she could run off with this guy. She spoke about it so matter-of-factly, like it was a done deal, like she was telling me about her weekend plans. And that kind of short-circuited my brain. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded along like an idiot. But inside, I was screaming, "What the hell is happening right now?" Things only got worse from there. She navigated away from Instagram. Now she's in her photo roll, scrolling through photos of him. Only these weren't like the ones on his public Instagram. These were pictures she had clearly taken without this man knowing. Leave a comment if this is giving you chills, because it gets worse. She had candid shots of him at what looked like a gym, at a coffee shop, walking down streets. This man clearly had no idea he was being photographed. She had been following him, stalking him, but in her mind, she described it as fate bringing them together. She talked about how they were soulmates, how their connection transcended normal relationships, how he just didn't know it yet, but would soon realize they were meant to be. I felt my stomach drop. This wasn't a love story. This was obsession. This was delusion. This woman had constructed an entire fantasy relationship with a stranger who probably didn't even know she existed. And she was sitting here telling me about it like it was the most romantic thing in the world. Meanwhile, she has a husband at home, kids who think their mom is on a work trip. I tried to stay calm, tried to figure out how to extricate myself from this situation without making things worse. I glanced at the time on my phone, made up some excuse about needing to make a call. I stood up and said something like, "Hey, this has been interesting, but I'm pretty tired. I think I'll head back to my room." I remember my voice shaking a little bit, but I moved towards the door like there wasn't any other option. She just looked at me with this flat expression, this eerily blank face, and said, "Okay, no argument. No attempt to stop me. Just that one word in this weirdly monotone voice." I left as calmly as I could, but the second I got out into the hallway, I speed walked all the way back to my room. I locked the door behind me and sat there trying to unpack what I'd just experienced for a good hour. Eventually, I went to bed, but I didn't sleep well. The next day, she acted like nothing had happened, completely normal during business hours, chatting about work, laughing at little things. Like the entire previous evening had been a fever dream that only I experienced. I didn't know whether to feel relieved or more terrified by that behavior. Later, away from her, when I finally worked up the courage, I asked my male coworker why he'd been acting so off the day before. He just gave me this uncomfortable look, this pained expression, and said simply, "She made a move on me." That's all he said. I don't think he had to say more, because even in my young, inexperienced brain, it was enough for me to understand exactly what he meant. I still don't know what that woman's deal was, whether she was experiencing some kind of mental health crisis, whether this was normal behavior for her that she usually hid better, whether she was having some kind of breakdown. That night still sticks in my head as one of the strangest, most unsettling experiences of my life. The combination of inappropriate behavior, stalking confession, and then acting completely normal the next day, like a switch flipping back and forth. I don't know what was going on in her head during our trip, or why she chose to involve us in whatever break from reality she was experiencing. What I can say with absolute certainty is this: the next time a work trip comes up, I won't be spending any of my downtime in hotel rooms with coworkers. That was more than enough for me. Pause. We're about halfway through. If these stories are keeping you engaged, make sure you hit subscribe. Drop a like. We've got more intense confessions coming up that will absolutely blow your mind. Now let's talk about family, about trust, about the lies we tell ourselves to survive. I failed my daughter. I failed to protect her when she needed me most. And now she won't speak to me. This is my confession, my burden, the weight I carry every single day. I was married to a man I'll call Matt. We had 2 daughters together, Molly and Janie. Janie was my beautiful baby girl, smart, creative, full of life. I loved her more than anything in this world. When Janie was about 7 years old, something happened. She came to me one day and told me that her father had touched her inappropriately. My world stopped in that moment. I immediately confronted Matt. He denied everything, said she was making it up, that she was confused. He was convincing, so convincing, and I wanted so desperately to believe him. I took Janie to a doctor. They examined her, found no physical evidence of abuse. The doctor said children sometimes misinterpret innocent touches, said it could have been nothing. I wanted to believe that. God, I wanted to believe that so badly. Matt convinced me that we needed to stay together for the girls. That divorce would damage them more than staying in an intact family. He promised he would never do anything to hurt our daughters, and I believed him. Or maybe I just wanted an excuse not to blow up my entire life, not to become a single mother, not to face the stigma and financial hardship. I don't know anymore what my real motivations were. Years passed. Janie seemed fine on the surface. She did well in school, had friends, seemed like a normal teenager. I told myself I'd made the right decision, that it had just been a misunderstanding when she was young. But when Janie was 16, everything fell apart. She started acting out, skipping school, getting into trouble. Her grades plummeted. She became angry and distant. especially toward Matt. One night, we had a huge fight. She was screaming at me, asking why I never believed her, why I chose him over her, why I let him hurt her. And then she told me everything. It hadn't stopped when she was 7. He had been abusing her for years, all while I slept in the same house, while I cooked dinner and did laundry and pretended everything was fine. My daughter had been suffering in silence because I'd made it clear I wouldn't believe her, that I would choose my husband over her safety. I felt like I was going to vomit. My whole world crumbled. Everything I thought I knew, everything I'd convinced myself was true, all of it was a lie. I confronted Matt again. This time, he admitted some of it, made excuses, said he had a problem, that he needed help, but Janie was firm. She wanted nothing to do with him. And honestly, I understood why. I immediately filed for divorce, kicked him out of the house, did everything I could to show Janie I believed her now, that I was on her side. But it was too late. The damage was done. She was so angry with me, and she had every right to be. I had failed her when she was vulnerable. When she needed me to be strong and protect her, I chose the easy path. I chose to believe lies because the truth was too painful. Janie finished high school but moved out the day she turned 18. She's cut off almost all contact with me, changed her phone number, won't tell me where she lives. She only communicates with her sister Molly. Molly is caught in the middle. She loves both of us. She understands why Janie is angry, but also sees that I'm devastated by my mistakes. I've been going to therapy, trying to understand why I made the choices I did, how I convinced myself to ignore the signs. There were so many signs I just refused to see. Matt is out of our lives now, but the damage he caused lives on. And I have to live with the knowledge that I enabled that damage, that I prioritized my comfort over my child's safety. I pray every day that Janie will forgive me, not forget. I don't deserve that. But maybe someday, forgive me enough to let me back into her life. These days, I torture myself by looking through her baby pictures, remembering the little girl who trusted me completely, before I broke that trust in the worst possible way. Years ago, I thought my biggest regret was giving up my master's degree to focus on family. Now I know my biggest regret is failing to protect my baby girl, my lovely, beautiful Janie. If there are parents watching this, please believe your children when they tell you something is wrong. Don't make excuses. Don't prioritize your own comfort. Protect them. That's your job. Your only job that really matters. I failed. Don't make my mistake. Pause. Let's move to something that shows how thin the line between safety and danger really is. How close we can come to disaster without even realizing it until afterward. This story takes place when I was 14 years old. I was deep into my rebellion phase, rebelling against my parents, teachers, anyone who tried to tell me what to do, acting out in every way I could think of. A year earlier, I'd been caught with marijuana at school, got arrested for possession, which meant court-ordered NA meetings and counseling, the whole system. Looking back, I was just a kid going through a rough patch. But at the time, I thought I was untouchable, invincible. The rules didn't apply to me. My mom would drop me off once a week for my NA group meetings. They met from 8 to 10 p.m. in a rather sketchy part of town. She didn't realize it back then, but the building was surrounded by halfway houses. The one we met in was just one of many on that block. The guys in my NA group were actually incredible. Most of them had lived through absolute hell and were clawing their way back out. They didn't try to talk down to me. They just listened, shared their stories, treated me like I mattered. After meetings, I'd sometimes hang around outside waiting for my mom to pick me up. This particular night, I was standing outside the building. It was dark. The street wasn't well lit. A van pulled up near where I was standing. Dark blue, kind of beat up looking. The kind of vehicle that just feels wrong somehow. A man rolled down the window, asked me if I needed a ride, said he could take me wherever I needed to go. Every instinct in my body screamed danger, but I was a cocky teenager who thought I could handle anything. So I actually considered it for half a second. Then another man walked out from one of the nearby buildings. He was heading toward his car, but he paused, looked at the van, looked at me. Something in his expression changed. He walked over quickly, asked loudly if I was waiting for someone. I said yes, my mom was coming. He nodded, stood with me. The van drove away almost immediately. This man stayed with me until my mom showed up about 10 minutes later. Didn't say much, just waited. Like he understood something I didn't. When my mom arrived, he walked me to her car, told my mom that maybe she should pick me up inside the building next time instead of having me wait outside. My mom thanked him. I got in the car. We drove home. I didn't think much about it that night. Just figured the guy in the van was weird and the other man was being nice. But about 2 weeks later, there was a news report. Police had arrested 2 men in connection with several kidnappings in the area. Young people, teenagers specifically. They showed pictures of the suspects and security footage of their vehicle. It was the same dark blue van that had pulled up next to me that night. My blood ran cold watching that report. The man who had waited with me potentially saved my life that night. And he did it without making a big deal out of it. Just stood there, made his presence known, scared them off. I never saw him again to thank him. I don't even know his name. But wherever he is, I hope he knows he made a difference, that his simple act of paying attention and caring saved a stupid kid from making a terrible mistake. I think about that night whenever I see a young person alone somewhere they shouldn't be. And I try to be that presence for them, if I can. Not creepy, not intrusive, just aware, just present. Because sometimes that's all it takes. Someone paying attention in a world where monsters rely on no one noticing. Pause. These confessions are hitting hard. Make sure you're subscribed. Hit that like button if these stories are impacting you. We're moving into the final stretch, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming. Let me tell you about Ashley's boyfriend, about how trust can blind us to danger that's living in our own home. This one still keeps me up at night sometimes. I was renting an apartment with my friend Ashley. We'd been friends since college. Close friends. The kind where you know each other's worst habits and still choose to live together. Ashley started dating this guy Matt. He seemed great at first. Charming, funny, had a good job. All the surface level stuff that makes someone seem safe. They'd been together for about 6 months when strange things started happening. Little things at first. Things I thought I was imagining. My underwear would go missing from the laundry. Just occasionally. I figured maybe I'd miscounted or left them at the gym. Then I noticed other small items disappearing. A necklace, a bracelet, random stuff. I'd come home sometimes, and feel like someone had been in my room. Nothing obvious, just a feeling, like things were slightly moved. My laptop in a different position on my desk. I started locking my bedroom door whenever I left the apartment. Ashley thought I was being paranoid, said I was stressed from work, that I needed to relax. Matt was around more and more. He'd gotten laid off from his job, so he was at our apartment constantly. Ashley loved having him there, loved playing house. I tried to be supportive, but the weird feeling intensified. Sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night with that sensation that someone was watching me. I'd look around, see nothing, tell myself I was being ridiculous. Then one day I came home early from work, sick with a stomach bug. I unlocked the apartment door quietly because my head was pounding. I heard something from my bedroom. Movement. I thought maybe Ashley was in there looking for something she'd borrowed. I pushed open my bedroom door, and there was Matt, standing in front of my dresser, going through my drawers. He jumped when he saw me, started making excuses, said he was looking for a phone charger, that Ashley had sent him to check my room. The lies tumbled out of his mouth so fast. I told him to get out of my room, get out of the apartment. He left quickly, didn't even try to argue. I called Ashley immediately, told her what happened. She didn't believe me at first, made excuses for him, said there must be a misunderstanding. We had a huge fight. She accused me of being jealous, of trying to sabotage her relationship. It was ugly. But I stood my ground, said I didn't feel safe with him having access to our apartment, that he needed to return his key. Ashley eventually agreed to talk to him. He denied everything, of course, but he did return his spare key. Ashley seemed satisfied with that. Things were tense between us for a few weeks, but gradually got back to normal. Or so I thought. Then Ashley went out of town for a work conference. 3 days. I had the apartment to myself. The first night she was gone, I deadbolted the door and put a chair against it. That old, irrational fear creeping back. The second night, I woke up at 3 a.m. to the sound of someone trying the doorknob, jiggling it, testing it. I was frozen in my bed, terrified. The sound stopped. I heard footsteps walking away down the hall. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. In the morning, I checked the hallway security camera footage that our building had. There was Matt, clear as day, trying to get into our apartment at 3 in the morning. I called the police immediately. They came, took my statement, looked at the footage, said they'd have a conversation with him. When Ashley got back, I showed her the footage, showed her everything, all the weird incidents, the pattern. She finally believed me, finally saw him for what he was. They broke up immediately, but it didn't end there. We found out later from the police that Matt wasn't even his real name. He'd been using a fake identity, had a criminal record in another state, restraining orders from ex-girlfriends. The police found photos of me in his apartment, taken without my knowledge, some through windows, some when I thought I was alone. He'd been obsessed, building up to something. The police couldn't say what, but they made it clear that we'd dodged something serious. Ashley felt horrible. Guilty, like she'd brought a predator into my life. I didn't blame her, though. These people are good at hiding what they really are. That's how they operate. We moved out of that apartment within a month, started over somewhere new. Took a long time before I felt safe again, before I could sleep without checking locks multiple times. Matt disappeared after the police investigation. No one knows where he went. part of me worries he's doing the same thing to someone else right now, some other unsuspecting person. That experience taught me to trust my instincts. When something feels wrong, it usually is. Don't let anyone convince you you're being paranoid. Don't ignore those gut feelings. They might save your life. Pause. We're in the final stretch now. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening to these intense stories. Make sure you're subscribed. These confessions matter. They're real, they're raw, and they need to be shared. Let me end with something that combines all the themes we've touched on tonight. Trust, betrayal, the masks people wear, how close danger can get without us even realizing. I was in an NA meeting, same meetings I talked about before. This was a couple years later. I was doing better, actually sober, actually working on myself. There was a guy in the group named Jeremy, seemed solid, good guy. He'd been sober for a few years, sponsored other people, gave good advice. We became friends outside the meetings, would grab coffee sometimes, talk about life, recovery, normal friendship stuff. One day, Jeremy asked if I wanted to go on a camping trip. Just us, get out of the city, clear our heads. Sounded great to me. We drove out to this remote area, really isolated. No cell service, just nature. It was beautiful at first, peaceful. We set up camp, made a fire, started talking. But as night fell, something shifted in Jeremy's energy. His whole demeanor changed. He started talking about dark things, really dark, violent fantasies, things he claimed he'd done. I couldn't tell if he was serious or just trying to scare me. I played it cool, didn't react, but inside I was terrified. We were miles from anyone, no way to call for help, and this person I thought I knew was revealing himself to be something else entirely. I stayed up all night, pretending to sleep, but watching him, planning what I'd do if he tried anything. Morning came. I told him I wasn't feeling well, that we should head back early. He agreed surprisingly easily, like the whole night before hadn't happened. We drove back in silence. I never spoke to him again after that trip. Didn't go back to those meetings. Started going to different ones across town. I found out later from someone else in the group that Jeremy had been investigated for several assaults. Nothing ever stuck. But there was a pattern. He'd get close to people from the meetings, target vulnerable people. Then things would happen. I was lucky. I got out. But it made me realize how easily these predators blend in, how they use places meant for healing to find victims. They look normal, seem trustworthy, say all the right things, until they don't. The world is full of people wearing masks, pretending to be something they're not, hiding darkness behind smiles and good deeds. All you can do is pay attention, trust your instincts, and don't ignore red flags just because you want to believe in someone. Sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones we never suspect, the ones we let closest. Pause. But we're not done yet. There's more to this darkness, more confessions that need to see the light, stories that show just how complicated human nature really is. Stay with me. Let me tell you about the neighbor from hell, about how a simple Wi-Fi prank spiraled into something we never could have predicted. This one taught me that sometimes people are hanging on by threads we can't even see. My girlfriend and I moved into this apartment building that seemed fine at first. Decent neighborhood, older building, but well maintained. We thought we'd lucked out finding an affordable place. Then we met our upstairs neighbor. Let's call him Dave. From day one, Dave was a nightmare. loud music at all hours. 3 a.m. became his favorite time to blast heavy metal that shook our ceiling. Fighting with whoever he was dating at the time. Screaming matches that went on for hours. We tried being nice. Knocked on his door politely. Asked if he could keep it down. He'd apologize. Say he'd be more considerate. Then do the exact same thing the next night. We complained to the landlord multiple times. Nothing changed. The landlord said his hands were tied unless we could prove harassment. But what could we prove? That our neighbor was inconsiderate? That's not illegal. After months of sleepless nights, we were at our breaking point. My girlfriend couldn't focus at work. I was irritable all the time. Our entire lives revolved around this guy's chaos. That's when I had an idea. A petty, stupid idea that seemed brilliant at 2 in the morning when his music was rattling our walls. I work in IT. I know networks, and I noticed Dave had an unsecured Wi-Fi router. So I started messing with it. Nothing destructive, just annoying. I'd throttle his connection during what seemed like important moments, change his DNS settings to redirect certain sites, make his internet experience frustrating. It was childish, but after months of sleep deprivation, it felt like the only power we had. We couldn't make him be quiet, but we could make his life slightly more difficult. For a few weeks, nothing happened. Then things escalated in ways we never anticipated. One night, we heard more shouting than usual from upstairs. Not just loud, aggressive, violent. The kind of yelling that makes you wonder if you should call someone. Then we heard crashing, like furniture being thrown. My girlfriend and I looked at each other. This was different. This wasn't just Dave being inconsiderate. Something was seriously wrong. We debated for a few minutes, then called the police. Said we heard a domestic disturbance, gave them our address. They showed up within 10 minutes, went upstairs, and that's when things got really weird. When they asked for his name, we told them, just gave his first name. Their entire demeanor changed instantly. Oh, him, like they knew exactly who we were talking about. Within minutes, multiple officers were swarming the building. They were trying to talk him out of his apartment. He wasn't cooperating, wasn't making this easy for anyone. Before long, they had him in handcuffs, threw him into the back of a squad car. But here's the thing. They didn't just arrest him because of the disturbance. They took him to the hospital. Psychiatric hold. When he got out and came back a few days later, he actually knocked on our door and apologized. That was surprising enough. But it wasn't the only surprise. Standing behind him was a man, a big man, leather jacket, that presence that says, "Don't mess with me." It was his probation officer. The message was clear. He was being watched now. Whatever had happened that night, whatever system he'd fallen through before, he was back in it now. A few weeks later, Dave moved out for good. The building was quiet again. Peaceful. We could finally sleep. But here's what haunts me. He never found out we were the ones messing with his Wi-Fi. Never figured out that we were directly or indirectly what triggered his meltdown that landed him in psychiatric care. Given everything he'd done during his time as our neighbor, maybe he had it coming. The sleepless nights, the fights, the complete disregard for everyone around him. But I think about it sometimes. What if our Wi-Fi pranks were the last straw for someone already struggling? What if we pushed someone who was barely holding it together over the edge? I'll never know. And maybe that's for the best. But it's a reminder that we never really know what battles other people are fighting. What might break someone who's already broken? Pause. If you're still here, make sure that subscribe button is hit. These stories matter. They're real, they're raw, and they need to be heard. Hit that like button too. Now let's talk about manipulation, about grooming, about how predators use the internet to target vulnerable kids. This one is hard to hear, but it needs to be told. I was 14 years old, incredibly naive, desperate for attention, living in a state of constant chaos. My home life was abusive. I wasn't allowed to hang out with friends except during school hours. I was isolated. I didn't have the support system that most kids take for granted. So I went looking for connection in the worst possible place. The internet. Like a lot of teens in the early 2010s, I found Omegle. At first, it felt exciting, chatting with strangers from all over the world. I had no idea just how dangerous that place was. And that's where I met him. He said his name was Noble. He told me he was 20 years old, lived in Missouri, and he seemed to zero in on me right away. Called me pretty, told me I was special, gave me the kind of attention I'd never gotten at home. When you're a lonely 14-year-old girl, those words feel like love. Even though my mom tried to shut it down when she found out, she took my phone, my computer, any devices I could use to communicate with him. But I was stubborn. I thought Noble loved me, and no one was going to convince me otherwise. Over the next year, I was removed from my home multiple times, placed with relatives, group homes. Social workers shuffled me around, but through every move, Noble stayed constant in my life. So long as I had a phone, he was there. Eventually, I learned the truth. He wasn't 20 like he said. He was 31, a grown man more than twice my age. But by that point, I was so far gone that I didn't care. I told myself it didn't matter, that he was the only one who loved me. That's how deeply I'd been groomed. Every time I was placed somewhere new, someone would find out I was in contact with this man. They'd take my phone, try to block him, remind me that what he was doing was dangerous. But it never stuck. The second I had access to a phone again, I went straight back to him. At one point, I was living with my biological father. He caught on too, did what he could to stop it. It worked for a while. I was on medication, in therapy, starting to stabilize. But then we moved. I was pulled out of treatment, and within weeks, I was back in contact with Noble, making plans that terrify me now when I think about what could have happened. We talked about me running away, meeting him in person, starting a life together. In my 14-year-old brain, this seemed romantic, like something from a movie. Now I understand it was grooming, manipulation, a predator isolating his victim, making her dependent on him, making her think she had no one else. I was preparing to run away, to meet him, when something happened that saved my life. I got caught sneaking out one night, not to meet Noble, just general teenage rebellion. But it triggered another intervention, another placement. This time, somewhere with better oversight. Therapy that actually stuck. People who recognized the signs of grooming. They helped me understand what was really happening. That this wasn't love. That a 31-year-old man pursuing a 14-year-old girl is a predator, not a boyfriend. It took years to fully understand the damage, to unpack how deeply he'd gotten into my head, how he'd used my vulnerability, my desperation for love, my isolation. I'm in my 20s now, safe, in real relationships with people my own age. But I think about that time a lot, how close I came to disappearing, becoming another statistic. Noble is still out there somewhere, probably doing the same thing to other vulnerable kids. I reported him when I was old enough to understand what happened, but nothing came of it. The internet makes this too easy for predators. They can access vulnerable kids from anywhere, groom them over months or years, convince them it's love. If you're a parent watching this, please monitor your kids' online activity, not to invade their privacy, but to protect them. These predators are everywhere, and they're good at what they do. If you're a kid being contacted by an adult online, please tell someone, even if you think it's love, even if they say no one else will understand. That's what predators do. They isolate. They manipulate. Real love doesn't require secrecy. Real love doesn't come from adults pursuing children. Real love doesn't make you feel like you have to choose between the person and your family. I was lucky. I got out. But so many don't. Pause. We're getting close to the end now. But there's one more story, one more confession that needs to be shared. About guilt, about choices, about living with consequences. I used to be a drug dealer, not proud of it, not making excuses, just stating facts. I was young, stupid, thought I was invincible, thought the rules didn't apply to me. I'd sell to anyone who had money. Didn't matter if they were addicts. Didn't matter if I was enabling their destruction. I told myself everyone has agency. Everyone makes their own choices. That's what I told myself anyway. To sleep at night. To justify what I was doing. One of my regular customers was this girl named Mary. Sweet girl. Younger than me. She'd gotten into drugs through a bad relationship. Was trying to numb pain from trauma. I knew her story. Didn't stop me from selling to her. Money is money. That's what I told myself. One night, Mary asked me to set her up with a date. Had a friend she wanted me to introduce her to. I didn't think much of it. Made the introduction. Thought I was helping. The next day I got a call. Mary was in the hospital. Badly beaten, raped, left for dead basically, and I'd set up the date that led to it. The guilt hit me like a truck. This girl who trusted me, who thought I was her friend, I'd handed her over to a monster, even if I didn't know what would happen. I visited her in the hospital. She was barely recognizable, face swollen, bruises everywhere. When she saw me, she didn't blame me. That almost made it worse. She just looked broken, empty, like something inside her had died that night. And I couldn't shake the feeling that I was responsible, that my lifestyle, my choices, had led to this. The police questioned me. I told them everything about my dealer connections, about who I'd introduced her to, about the whole network, but nothing came of it. The guy who hurt her was never charged. My dealer covered his tracks, only got a slap on the wrist for minor possession. The system failed, like it fails so many victims. But I couldn't fail anymore. That was my wake-up call. I got clean, cut ties with that whole world, started over. Been sober for 5 years now. But Mary? Last I heard, she's still using, still trying to numb what happened to her because of choices I made, because I didn't think about consequences. I carry that guilt every day. Can't undo what I did. Can't take back the role I played in her trauma. All I can do is try to be better, do better. That's what I tell myself anyway. But late at night, when I can't sleep, I see her face. Broken, beaten, and I know that I contributed to that my choices had consequences beyond what I imagined. If you're involved in anything that could hurt people, get out. It's not worth it. The money isn't worth it. The lifestyle isn't worth it. Because eventually, consequences catch up. And when they do, you'll have to live with what you've done every single day for the rest of your life. Pause. That's it. Those are the confessions that people can't escape. The stories that haunt us. The truth about how thin the line between safety and danger really is. The choices we make. The consequences we live with. If you made it to the end, thank you for being here, for listening, for caring. These stories needed to be told. They need to be heard. Drop a comment below about which confession hit you hardest. Which story will you be thinking about tonight when you're trying to sleep? Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell, because there are more stories like this out there. More truths that need light. More confessions that people carry in silence. And sometimes, just sometimes, sharing them helps. Helps the person telling them. Helps the people listening understand. Sometimes the scariest things aren't fictional. They're the real experiences people carry with them every single day. The secrets they keep. The guilt they bear. The confessions they can't escape. We're all human. We all make mistakes. We all have things we wish we could take back. Things we wish we'd done differently. People we wish we'd protected. Choices we regret. But we can't change the past. All we can do is learn from it. Grow. Try to be better. Try to do better. Try to make sure our mistakes don't define us, even when they haunt us. Stay safe out there. Pay attention to the people around you. Trust your instincts. Protect the vulnerable. Speak up when something feels wrong. And remember that everyone you meet is fighting battles you know nothing about. Be kind. Be aware. Be human. Until next time, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And remember to hit that subscribe button for more real stories that matter. But wait. Before we go, there's one more confession. One more story about obsession and the lies we tell ourselves. My grandmother was in her 80s, living alone. Sharp mentally, but struggling physically. I'd visit twice a week, Wednesdays and Saturdays, like clockwork. One Wednesday, I showed up early. Traffic had been lighter than expected. I let myself in and heard voices in the living room. My grandmother and a man I didn't recognize. I walked in. This man, maybe in his 50s, was sitting on the couch, smiling at my grandmother like they were old friends. She introduced him as Cousin Danny, said he'd stopped by to visit. But here's the thing, we don't have a Cousin Danny. I know our entire family tree, every cousin, every distant relative. There is no Danny. I played it cool, shook his hand, but I was watching him. The way his eyes kept darting to her purse, to the cabinet where she kept important papers, to the jewelry box on the side table. He was scoping the place. I could feel it. This wasn't a family visit. This was something else entirely. I excused myself, called the police from the bathroom, told them my grandmother had a stranger claiming to be family, suspected elder fraud, or worse. 2 officers arrived, asked Danny for ID, asked how he knew my grandmother. His story fell apart immediately. They searched him, found her medication in his pocket, pills he'd stolen from her bathroom. They arrested him right there. My grandmother was confused about why they were taking her cousin away. For weeks afterward, she'd bring him up, talk about Danny, wonder how he was doing. She'd smile about it like a cherished memory. I'd have to gently remind her. He wasn't real. He wasn't family. He tried to hurt her. The police told me he'd done this before, multiple times. Targeted elderly people, befriended them, robbed them, sometimes worse. My grandmother was lucky. I was lucky. Timing saved her, just showing up 15 minutes early. She passed away 2 years later peacefully. And I'm grateful she had those years, grateful that man didn't take that from her. If you have elderly relatives, check on them. Know who's visiting. These predators are everywhere. Pay attention. Protect the people who can't protect themselves. Pause. Now one final story, one that shows growth and change. I was an addict, life-destroying addict. Lost everything, job, friends, family, self-respect. Hit rock bottom repeatedly. I hurt a lot of people, stole from family, lied to friends, manipulated anyone who showed kindness, introduced my little sister to drugs. Within months, she was as deep as I was. Within a year, arrested. I pimped out girls I called friends. Convinced them they needed money for drugs. One night, things went horribly wrong. I'd set up a date for a girl named Mary. Should have known better. Something felt off, but money was involved. Dropped her off, got high, passed out, woke to missed calls. Mary was in the hospital, beaten, raped, tortured. I delivered her to that monster. Seeing her with dead eyes, I knew I'd done that. Not directly, but my choices enabled it. That was my breaking point. I checked into rehab, real rehab, for me, to stop destroying lives. 5 years sober now. My sister got clean too eventually. Mary, though, last I heard, never did. I can't undo what I did. Can't take back those years, those consequences. All I can do is be better now. Sponsor people in recovery. Share my story. Maybe it helps someone avoid my mistakes. I don't know if I deserve forgiveness. Maybe living with the guilt is my punishment. But I keep showing up. Keep trying to be someone different than who I was. We can't undo the past, but we can influence the future. One choice at a time. One day at a time. If you're struggling with addiction, get help. Don't wait until you destroy someone else's life. And if you've hurt people because of addiction, use that guilt to be better. Not to use again. That's my final confession. I was a monster. I destroyed lives. But I'm trying to be better, trying to help others. It doesn't erase what I did. Nothing can. But it's something. Pause. And now we're truly at the end. These confessions show the worst of humanity sometimes, but also growth, change, the possibility that people can become better than their worst moments. We're all flawed, all carrying guilt, all haunted by choices we wish we could take back. But we keep going, keep trying. These are the confessions people can't escape, the truths they carry. But sharing them helps, reminds us we're not alone. Thank you for making it to the end. Drop a comment about which story affected you most. Hit subscribe. Turn on notifications. Because these confessions are just the beginning. There are millions more waiting to be told. Behind every confession is a real person carrying real pain. Stay safe, stay aware, stay human. And remember, we're all just trying to survive our own stories. Until next time.